For those of you that are interested in going to law school is going to teach you one big thing. One thing that you thought you never had to think. I know how to think. They're going to teach you how to think like a lawyer.
You come in here with a skull full of mush, and you leave thinking like a lawyer.
And once you finish law school, you'll be equipped with information. You can never turn it off. In your everyday life, you're going to always be thinking like a lawyer. Let's talk about it. Some of you may want to go to law school because your family and friends, or you may recognize this about yourself, like, I like to argue, so I want to go to law school. I mean, at a very small level, argument is part of a lawyer's job, but thinking like a lawyer is something that you're going to get those skills, and you're going to look at things totally different. I'm going to talk about 5 ways that you're going to think differently when you think like a lawyer. So the first thing is you're going to be able to spot issues. In law school, that's part of the game. Like, you have to be able to identify issues, what's going on, how many things are going on at a time, and being able to spot issues. So when you're a lawyer, that's your job. You have to think like a lawyer. You're always going to identify what can possibly be happening. Are there 5 different things happening here? And you'll be able to spot them. It'll jump out at you at the page. Even now when I read something, I look at the page and I'm like, that's wrong. I'll circle it. That's wrong. Okay, that's wrong. I can spot issues, and it's kind of like embedded in my brain now when I look at anything. Okay, the second way that you'll be thinking like a lawyer after going to law school is you'll be able to see both sides of the story. Oftentimes, people will come to me and like, oh, can we sue this? I have a case about this, and it's a slam dunk. Usually, there are very few slam dunk cases. As a lawyer, you put your lawyer hat on and say, if I represent a person, what is the person that we're suing? What is their lawyer going to put? What's an argument that they're going to put forth? And if you can't see both sides of the argument, then you're lacking as a lawyer. Lawyers always have to understand there's more to one side. What are going to be the defenses that the person is going to put forward? What's going to be their counter argument? Being able to understand that there's going to be always 2 sides to it, and preparing your case accordingly will make you a great lawyer. So there's always 2 sides. Don't assume that, okay, even when we're talking about this situation, I live in Houston, Texas, and people were saying they want to sue because we had electricity that was suspended for some of them for a whole week after last week's debacle we had a little bit of snow and there was a problem. And they said, I want to sue. Can they sue? First of all, you can always sue somebody. Whether you win is a totally different story. So you can always sue somebody and put a complaint out and say, I want to sue them. Now, when you say I want to sue somebody, then you actually have to also realize, what is it going to entail? What is the person I'm suing going to bring up in response to this lawsuit? They're going to bring up something. They have a good lawyer. The lawyer is going to come up with something. And being able to say, okay, if I was representing the person I'm suing, what would I say? Think like a lawyer. So the third way that you're going to learn how to think like a lawyer is you're going to actually be able to take the emotion out of things when looking at factual situations. And so a lot of times people are guided by emotions. And as a lawyer, your job is to filter out the emotions and get down to the facts. The law is guided by facts and applying the law to the facts. And sometimes the average layperson was like, oh, I was so distraught about the situation. Let's say somebody got hit by a car. I was so distraught by the situation and crying. What a lawyer does is get to the bottom of it. Who was driving? Were they intoxicated? What's the speed they were going? What are the weather conditions? You basically take out the fact that, yes, this was a sad situation. What are the facts in this case? And how can I prove it or disprove it? So a lot of times, like I said, sometimes people might think lawyers are heartless, but the law is not based off of emotion. It's based off of facts. And actually getting down to the nitty-gritty is one of the ways that you're going to be thinking like a lawyer. So the fourth way you're going to be able to think like a lawyer is you're going to be able to analogize situations. If you're not familiar, in the United States, we have a legal system that's based on precedential law, meaning that when certain case laws put down from certain courts, then that applies to cases that come after it. That becomes the law. And so as a lawyer, your job is going to be able to compare and say that this situation is similar or different from the precedential law. And so that's your job as a lawyer. You're going to have to say, let's say in case A, somebody with a red hat ran across the street and hit somebody on the head. And in that situation, that was considered a crime. And in situation B, your situation, you might have somebody with a blue hat on, ran across the street and hit somebody over the head. And you have to distinguish whether this is similar or different. You have to pull out what the law is. Was it significant that the person had on a red hat or a blue hat? Or was the significance of that case the fact that they ran across the street and hit somebody? That's basically very small level, but that's how case law works. You have to take your facts and say, Judge, this is similar to this case, and so you should decide it the same way. Or you got to say, Judge, this is different from this case, and you should decide it a different way. And you have to make it's very nuanced. You have to say the reason why is because not just the hats are different. The purpose of the case was X, Y, and Z. And so your job as a lawyer is to make analogies. And so a good lawyer, like I said from before, they'll be able to tell both sides of the story and say, okay, I understand this might be different, but I still want the judge to decide this way because, and to be able to address all angles of it. So think like a lawyer, you'll be able to do a lot of analogizing. Okay, so the fifth way that you're going to learn how to think like a lawyer in law school is you're going to be okay operating in gray areas. I know before law school that you thought life was basically black and white. Maybe you didn't think that way, but when you get into the law, you realize there's a lot of gray areas. When you get to law school, they'll ask a question and your answer is going to most likely be, it depends. It depends on a lot of situations. And the law professor is trying to get you to understand that, yes, it really does depend on a lot of different things. There's a lot of gray areas. The law can't possibly predict all situations. And so your job as a lawyer is to operate in that gray area to help your client. So when you understand that it's not black and white and you have some gray areas, that can be to your advantage. You sometimes are creating law as you go along. Like your case might be one of first impression, or so you want the judge to think. Judge, this is a case of first impression. You should decide this case differently from how the other cases before it may have been decided because it's so specialized, it's so particular. So you're going to be operating in very gray areas for most of your legal career. And it can be a fun thing. It definitely challenges your critical thinking skills. In undergrad, you basically got information and you spit it back out. After you complete law school, or even as you're going through law school, you'll realize that the professor's way of teaching is definitely challenging the way that you think. His job or her job is to help you think like a lawyer so that you can be an advocate for whoever you represent, whether it be a person, a corporation, the government. Your job is to actually be an advocate for whoever your client is. I'll give you a little bonus for those who watch to the end. As a lawyer, it's kind of like an occupational hazard when you look at things and you think like a lawyer. Simple things like your child going out and playing or their friends coming over to your house. You kind of think about like, could something go wrong? How do I prevent something from going wrong? How to defend myself if something does go wrong? And so it's kind of, sometimes it takes the fun out of the things, I would think, because you're always thinking about how could this be possibly litigation in the future. I don't know, somebody might sue me if their child chokes while they're at my house. Is that a problem? No, you guys can't come to my house. Or somebody was saying that, oh, they have a little hill next to their house. And sometimes the kids come and slide down the hill in the wintertime. Should they be allowed to, or is that putting you at risk as a homeowner? Because if they get injured on your property, the person may sue you. And so as a lawyer, you think about these things and it's like, should I let the kids have fun? Maybe. Or if letting the kids have fun might end up with me in court defending a particular injury, a personal injury lawsuit. I don't know. It can be, like I said, a good thing or bad thing. Let me know in the comments below what other ways how you can think like a lawyer.